find ourselves this morning in the same predicament we were last week. 2 themes, 3 scriptures, trying to bring all of this together. I want to start this morning with despair. It's not the highest, bestest place to start necessarily, but the idea is that we're moving from darkness, hopefully, into light. So we want to start in darkness. When I think about despair, I think about a series of books I read many years ago. It's a double trilogy written by Stephen Donaldson. It's the White Gold series. Anyone else read the White Gold? Ah, there's
the leper, my friend, the leper.
There we go. Exactly. So it's a big series of books, and they're very dark books. So I don't necessarily recommend them, except that Donaldson is one of my favorite authors. And it's about a man whose life is really a mess. He lives out in the bush by himself in a cabin. He's got no job, his wife has left him, and he has leprosy, which in modern America is a real thing. People still get leprosy. And it's treatable, and you can take care of it, but he doesn't, because he just has no hope. And he gets transported somehow into this other world, which he refuses to actually believe is real, but there he is, in this other world. And he has lost one of the fingers on one of his hands, and he's wearing his wedding ring, which is made of white gold. And the people in this world have this prophecy that someday someone is going to come with only 3 fingers on one hand and wearing a white gold ring, and he's going to be their savior. So they're looking at him going, well, here you are. And he has no interest in being a savior. Because he doesn't believe the world is real to begin with, and second of all, who is he? And he's got no magical powers or anything like that. But the enemy in that world, the one they all need to battle, is called the despiser. And his big weapon is despair. That's what he wants. He wants people to despair. He wants them to give up all hope and know that they cannot win and just despair. And this man really doesn't have any hope. And even when he's offered joy, he refuses joy because he thinks joy is an illusion that's eventually going to lead him to more despair. But he also refuses to despair. And it's sort of like 6 volumes of him just refusing to despair despite all of the really, really, really good reasons he has to despair. He's just not going there. Even though he has no hope or joy, because he's a bit of a mess. And I think, what drives him is just this knowledge that if despair wins, then despair wins. And he refuses to let despair win. I think about despair as a very physical emotion. I think despair is something we feel in our bodies. And maybe part of the reason I think that is because of so much of the advertising industry is devoted to making us despair about our bodies. Right? We're either too thin, or too fat, or too old, or too short, or our hair is too curly, or it's too straight, or there's not enough of it. Right? There's always something we're supposed to be despairing about our bodies. And so if we start there, despairing about this, well then the rest of the world, what hope can there be? So I think about despair as a very physical thing. And I think about despair when I think about John the Baptist sending his disciples to Jesus, because he has been in the wilderness proclaiming the coming of the Messiah, the coming of the Savior who's going to come and, well, whatever, right? But just definitely save us. And now he's in jail, which obviously does not look like we're winning very much. And there's this Jesus of Nazareth person, but Is that really what salvation looks like? Jesus sort of walking around, proclaiming things, but, I don't know. And well, I mean, whether or not I know, John the Baptist doesn't anyway. And so I'm guessing, one of the problems in reading a text is that it's hard to figure out tone of voice. Right? And there's no, notes in there, to get in a play. So we're guessing here, but I'm guessing there's some despair when John the Baptist sends his disciples out to Jesus and says, are you the one? Or do we really need to wait for somebody else? And Jesus responds by doing sort of show and tell. Right? It's mostly show. Right? Go tell John what you see. Blind receive their sight, deaf hear, the lame walk. Poor have good news preached to them. Blessed is the person who takes no offense at me. Which I take to mean something like, this is what there is. Get on board. I don't know. Never figured out that phrase. But this is Jesus, and this is what he says to John. That this is what there is. This is what salvation looks like. And it's such a relevant question, because people are still asking that question today, all the time. People are asking it of Donald Trump. Right? Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect another? Right? And other people are asking it of Bernie Sanders. Right? And Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg, and all the other folks involved in that race. Are you the one who is to come to save us from Donald Trump? Or should we vote for somebody else? Right? We still have our Savior myths. Right? We still have this dream of someone who's going to come and rescue us from whatever it is that we need to be rescued from. Right? Don't pretend it's just the other side that has their desire for a Savior. Right? And the reality is that no is pretty much always the answer. If we're waiting for someone to show up and rescue us from all of this, we're going to be disappointed. It's just not going to work out that way. Yesterday, Deb and I went to the movie theater, a rare thing in our relationship, and watched the Dark Waters movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should go see it, because it's like the only movie you're ever going to see that features West Virginia prominently in the plot. And it's all about the DuPont chemical thing, and Teflon, and cancer, and all of the other horrible things. And it's dark. Oh my goodness, it's dark. And there's no bright shining light at the end, so don't even wait for that. Spoiler alert. Right? But it's ultimately about despair. About the refusal to despair. About strong people who say, no, we will not let DuPont win. We will not let those other people win. We're just going to keep on going, even though we have this multi-billion-dollar corporation that just wants us to despair. That's what they want, right, in the movie. That's what they want. They want this man to give up out of despair because he can't win. So these feelings of despair are not news to us. And it's interesting in this context, in our modern context, right, to remember that we are always in this season talking about real stuff. Because it's easy to get caught up in the cute little manger scene. And don't get me wrong, I like the manger scenes, right? But there's some sort of fairy tale aspect to all of this. Because and so Bethlehem becomes a fairy tale. And the whole thing just becomes, no different than watching Frozen on television, right? There's this place somewhere, and right? So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to take Sunday school time today to see some stuff from Bethlehem, and recognize that, no, there's actually real people still living in Bethlehem, And the parallels between ancient Bethlehem and modern Bethlehem are like too stark even to almost believe. Right? Here we are 2,000 years later, still under occupation. You know how much of the time in the last 2,000 years Bethlehem's been under occupation? All of it. Holy cow, huh? 2,000 years. And before that, yeah, about 500 before that already. Still under occupation. The only thing that's changed over the years is who is the official occupier. But I'm guessing for lots of people in Bethlehem, what difference does it make? I don't know, maybe they notice one occupier to the next, but seriously, after 2,500 years. But real people and real stuff. And then and I think when we remember that, then we remember that this story is also about real people, you and me, right, and the people in Morgantown and real stuff. Because despair is real people and real stuff, and joy and peace. These are all real things. And so when when John the Baptist sends this messenger to Jesus, Jesus says, well, look. And his answer is really very simple. Access to health care, good news for the poor. Right? Is this at all relevant to us today? Maybe a little bit. Right? And Jesus says, look, if you want to know whether this is good news, just look at the poor. And a while back, I remember saying that you know, we've got this, right? I mean, just standard in our culture is this picture in our heads. It's a triangle, right? And at the bottom are the poor, right, and the masses, and then there's sort of the smaller middle class, and then a fewer of the rich, and the ultra-rich on top, and you have this big triangle. And the problem with this triangle is that visually, it looks really stable. Right? There's nothing more stable. It looks like one of the pyramids, right? It's just going to stand there. It's all fine. It's stable. That's the system we got. Right? And I've said in the past that, as far as Jesus is concerned, if you want to see how things are going, you want to look at the people at the bottom and see how they're doing. But that's not what Jesus is saying. What Jesus is saying is that what we've got to do is change the mental imagery and flip this triangle upside down so that it looks like this. Right? And any geometry teacher is going to tell you that a triangle looks like this, right? And a triangle like this, both triangles, right? And they're both equally valid ways of describing reality. But the one that looks like this looks a lot less stable, right? It looks like it's going to fall over at any minute. And so we need, I think, partly to get rid of this illusion that what we've got is stable and is working. Jesus says it's not working. This is not, right, at all God's plan. This, you know, we've got to flip this whole, right, what the scripture Tom is reading, right? We're just going to take this whole thing and flip it upside down, and then we'll be ready for, right? Then we've got something to look for. When we see it upside down, then we're seeing the right thing. And in the middle of all of this, it's still hard not to despair. Despair is easy. Whether we despair about how we look, or we despair about Morgantown, or we despair about Bethlehem, you don't have to study Bethlehem very long to despair. You don't have to study Morgantown very long to despair. But the reality still is. The reality still is that if despair wins, then despair wins. And that's not where we're going. Despair wins, we're just going to lose. And we need to keep reminding ourselves that sometimes I make the mistake of thinking of these as sort of the candles of reality and the candles of illusion. But that's just wrong. Right? Right? So I got to sort of bang myself over the head going, oh, these are the candles of reality, and those are the candles of reality too.
His life isn't really as
Right. But I have, you know, I was sort of drawn to the dark side. That's why I became a pastor, right? but these things are real things, right? But so are those. so are hope and joy and peace and love. And so as we recognize the reality of those things, we also need to recognize the reality that those things are not dreams or illusions. They're real things. They are real things in our lives. And they're the candles that we should be lighting more often. And those are the ones we should be blowing out as often as we possibly can. Pardon me? Natalie will do it for us, exactly. Right? With joy. Absolutely, right? We need to do this with joy. And to recognize we get free help. Right? God has come here to say, free help. And we can choose to take advantage of free help or not. That's up to you. But why not? So our last song is a call and response song. And so we need ultimately a large black person to do this. So I'm not particularly large and certainly not at all black, as I found out after 3 years in Ghana. But I'll do the call if you do the response. It's number 75.